Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wish Alliance's Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and tonight we have our special guest, Geraldine Orozco. It's such an honor and privilege to have you with us tonight. And for people who don't know Geraldine, she is absolutely spectacular. She is an intuitive. She is a physiotherapist, a DNA reprogrammer, lifelong contactee, and she focuses on the dissemination of knowledge in the realm of the architecture of the human soul expression in the 3D realm to the 55th dimensional realm. Geraldine educates adults and children on how to activate and to work with the data stored within the holographic DNA in order to embody one's highest expression. And Geraldine, I know that you have literally touched the lives of thousands and thousands of people, and I'm so honored that you're with us here tonight and part of the Wish Alliance. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Wow, what an amazing intro. And Susie, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope we're going to get a recording of that because I want to hear that again. Sheila and Alan, thank you both so much for that amazing welcome and introduction. It's an honor for me to be here sharing with you high vibration souls that are seekers and looking to find answers and doing the work. That to me is what brings so much love into my life and joy. So today I would like to talk about a couple things. I'm going to show my presentation in just a moment. But I'd like to invite you to come into a little bit of a different space in terms of, kind of redirecting where our energy is going in the next few years. And maybe just with this new understanding and what I'm going to be sharing with you, maybe shifting a little bit in the things that we are prioritizing in our lives. I think we're going through a major time of transformation, and we hear that quite a lot. But there are truly some major transformations that are occurring in ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and in our world around us physically that are a product of this kind of shift that we're experiencing interdimensionally. So let me begin by sharing my presentation here. And let me go ahead and put that in presentation mode. And let's see if I can put this up correctly. Oh, no, that's not it. Bear with me here one moment while I figure out how to do this. All right, let's just go with this. You guys can see this well. All right, so we would like to discuss a new human, a new existence. What is that, and why do we talk about a new human? We are experiencing shifts in the world, and we need to understand what that means for us. And in order to do that, I would love for you to take a look at what does it mean to be a human? Let's talk about what it is to be a human. One of the most powerful questions that I had in my early journey was trying to find what truth was. And of course, that's an impossible feat because there are so many dimensions of reality that we can tune into and different perspectives that we can see things through. But I find time and time again, not only with the experiences that I have, but working with hundreds of people, that there are certain structures of reality that we seem to kind of bind to because there's some kind of beautiful intelligence and organization to the universe that we participate in as humans. So that being said, there is something to say about this human body. This organism that we call the human body is a representation. It is a fractal of an infinite potential of creation. And our physical bodies depict these self-similar systems of this information. Just like the cells and neurons in our bodies have these intricate networks of communication throughout the body, we also find these incredible structures in the universe. And one of the most amazing things that we begin to understand is that the human plays such a valuable role in this entire co-creation of reality, because in other words, we are the universe, and we are the universe in such a profound way that our physical body functions in the way that the universe functions, that the way it expands, the way it contracts, the way information moves in and out of its space. And our physical bodies, as we know, they create these toroidal fields, and many systems in this universe, including planets, including the cells in our body, are functioning in this incredible toroidal field. And I've talked a lot about that in other presentations. But the beauty of this movement is that because of these self-similar design of the multiverse and our physical bodies, there is a direct link. There is a relationship between what occurs inside of the universe as a physical body and what is occurring externally. And so today I want to kind of touch a little bit on that, but let's talk about how this data, this source information, comes into the physical body and organizes itself in the physical body. As source is expressed through the different dimensional planes, something that we call fragmentation occurs, where basically it's a fractalization of light as it bends through the different dimensional expressions, and essentially ending in this one hologram of your physical body, your organism, which organizes in this beautiful system of ranges of frequency from low to high. And so we know that, we have that information, but the next level of this information is, how does this information organize itself? It organizes itself in the chakra system, and the chakra system then is connected to the different processes in the body, organs and neurological systems, nervous system, muscle systems, all the different systems in the physical body, the endocrine system, are all intercommunicating in order to process this data, this massive amount of data. However, because of the structure of our physical bodies, only when we understand how to move the body in a certain way, how to prepare it, how to shift itself energetically and move its frequency, can we really access all of this information that is available to us. So most of us here on the physical realm are quite let's say, hypnotized by the physical external world. And therefore, our attention is only managed in the lower chakra system. So we are primarily very hooked on the sensations of the body, the feelings, the five senses. And even then, we often barely even notice the kind of information that we are processing through even our five senses because of the lack of awareness. So what does that mean? It means that the majority of the time we are in a very profound hypnosis that disconnects us from an understanding of how we are inputting into this system, just the way that our body is like this incredible computing system. Our experience in this hologram is also like a computing system that requires an input in order to get an output. And of course, this is how we experience cause and effect. Now, from these different dimensional planes, how this infinite source shapes itself, forms itself in the different dimensional planes will depend on the structure of that dimension. The number of that dimension creates a specific geometric shape that allows this, you can say, light to bend in a certain way, to absorb certain rays, certain aspects of this infinite light, and then produces these dimensional planes where there are certain laws and certain processes that take place in these dimensional planes. Much like we are experiencing here in this three-dimensional plane, light bends in a certain way. We are able to see a certain spectrum of color. We're able to experience certain levels of frequencies. And all matter is made up of different of these platonic solids that combines together to create these structures of matter. And it isn't until we zoom in to the molecular level that we begin to understand that there is a common language between all of these things in the universe, including matter and ourselves. And it is a code, it's a written code, a data bank of information. And in our physical bodies, it is the genetic code, the DNA, that writes the protein that creates this physical hologram. It creates our, the arms, the legs, all of the features of ourselves that are an expression. But none of those things are by chance. These are very intricately complex designs that even the family that we are born into defines the expression of our hologram. The vibrational frequency made up of the data that is passed down genetically through these family lineages are expressed in our physical hologram. So essentially, we are stardust because we are made up of these structures of light, of infinite consciousness that comes down, fractalizes, and creates these holographic bodies. But even more so, if you look at our DNA, we contain these geometric structures within the design of our physical body. And our DNA is an expression of that. DNA is one of the most important aspects, I believe. And I discovered the aspect of DNA through my contact experience in 2013, being presented hybrid children that I was a part of creating. I participated in creating these hybrid children. And therefore, my question at the time was, how did I create these hybrid children? Did I consent to this? How do you go about mixing genetics in order to create these new organisms, these new species? And what are they utilized for? So it brought me really deep into trying to understand what the hybridization program was and our role as a human. What makes humans important enough to hybridize in something that we are living in, a holographic matrix? So this took me into many different areas of study and research to try to understand. But what we need to understand fundamentally is the structure of the reality in which we in and the role that we play as a part of co-creating it. We are just like this universe. It is a series and an expression of this expansive, contractive, and expansive energy. And there are black holes that make up this structure of this universe in which information is passed through. And our bodies end up being just like the design of these black holes that are functioning like a vortex with a singularity point. It creates this design where it almost interlaces in and out. And we see this design in everything. It is a very divine and sacred design that is embedded in all organisms in our multiverse. Just as these black holes in our physical bodies, we have these exact same design in our physical body, in our DNA, and in the structure of the physical body. And the movement of how this information moves and weaves together, producing the product of this hologram, is very interesting because there is a certain design specifically. There's an instruction manual, it seems, to how this information is organized. If we look at the Fibonacci sequence, we can begin to see some patterns in the universe. These are self-similar patterns. It's the mathematics of the universe that allows us to understand that we have this embedded structure, architecture within our physical body down to the cellular level, but as well in the universe. Where we are moving through right now at this particular time is we are moving from a 13th dimensional existence, structure architecturally, into a 21 architectural existence. And this process of moving from the 13th to the 21 is really important to understand because it is something that affects our DNA, it affects our evolution, our spiritual work, the way that we see ourselves as humans, and we can begin to understand why there is such massive shifts in the world at large. I mean, we went through something in the past 2 years that we never imagined in a million years would occur in the world, something that you would only see in some sci-fi film. We experienced here collectively, and it was necessary to experience that kind of shift because it is what will bring us into this next structure. There's a vibrational frequency change that has occurred around the entire world, and all organisms are shifting. There's another element to this that I'm going to share with you in just a moment, but I want to dive deeper into this topic because I get a lot of questions about this. You know, what does it mean to have 21-dimensional structure of reality? First of all, we need to understand that just as this universe, as I mentioned, we are this vortex. And a vortex, in order to function properly, expressing itself and contracting and receiving information, it needs to be flowing in a proper way. Things need to be moving. And the movement of each individual organism on this planet, every human being, is encoded with specific information based on their life experiences, based on their genetic, ancestral, repetitive traumas that are coming down their bloodlines, and collective traumas that they're experiencing within their social group, within their culture, within their, even the country in which they were born, plays a role in encoding that organism with specific information that will define how or whether it has more or less potential to access the information. This model is beginning to shift because we are learning how to work with this physical body beyond just the hologram of the external experience. We're beginning to understand the physics, you can say the quantum physics of the physical body. And if we understand how to move this vortex and activate your chakra system in order to move life force through the body properly, you can begin to really tap in to another level of existence. And this is where we need to head towards in the next 4 years specifically. In 2024, we are going to be going through a massive shift in which we are really going to need to understand this because it affects whether the existence of an organism can live in resonance with its outer world. And if we don't shift vibrational frequency and understand how to move this physical body properly, we won't be in resonance with this plane of existence. And many beings will either perish out of this cycle and go back into the reincarnation cycle, or they will shift out into another level of hypnosis, which now inhibits their ability to generate life force by themselves. They will have to depend on technology in order to move their energetic space. And we want to try to avoid that because you're going into something like transhumanism, or you're going into something that is dependent on technology. There's something wrong with technology, but we need to shift into what is the alta organic, which is a very advanced way of living and cohabiting with nature. Nature functions in this exact same way, and we see that from the stars in the sky to the galaxies to the physical body. If we understand that the physical body produces life force and runs energy through the physical body, we can understand why we have illnesses, why we have stagnation in the body. Wherever we have stagnation, wherever there is not the flow of this life force, we get illnesses. This is a very, very, very incredible chart that indicates the parts of the physical body and thought forms that tend to manifest and stagnate in those areas. And as a healer for many, many years, time and time again, this information holds true, not only because of my psychic abilities, being able to see within the body where the information is being held, but after working and speaking to hundreds of people from around the world that come with these problems, and they can be deprogrammed based on where in the body the information is being held. So we have this beautiful intelligence to the physical body. We just need to understand it in order to begin to shift. Our genetic code in itself is an expression of this mathematical perfection. And in the same way that we have these geometrical structures in the physical body, when we go into illness, it deteriorates the genetic code. It weakens the genetic code. And our chakra system becomes distorted, and so does our code that is being written. Not only that, but the chakra systems from the higher levels become completely blocked, in which source energy cannot move and anchor into the physical body. Now, let's talk about the 13 chakras, as this is the model that we are in now. And this is very important because we have been experiencing a lot of solar flares over the past couple years already, 4 years. It seems to have become something very watched now. But people are experiencing a major shift. Even over the past couple years, I have many patients that have resulted in blood deficiencies. And I keep seeing a pattern. And I decided to do some research because a lot of people that are experiencing these blood deficiencies are very much connected to the heart, whether you can produce, the blood is produced in the hips primarily, but the system, the meridian line that runs through the body, through the hips, up towards the heart in the chest area are interconnected. And when there are blockages in these areas, in the root and the heart chakra, this is where you can begin to distort the life force flow within the body. So what I've noticed is that because of the kind of trauma that people have gone through over the past 2 years, it was specifically targeted to target that root chakra in combination with the heart. It is the identity of the self, the ability to love the self, feel worthy enough with the body, and connect that with grounded safety, feeling safety, intuitive safety. So these blood deficiencies, I believe, are a result of this kind of belief systems, but in addition to the solar flares that have been occurring in the world around us. So why is that? If we look at the chakra system, if you go up the chakras here to the 7th, which is your chakra, you go up to the 8th chakra, you have your crown chakra, which is the center of manifestation and co-creation. So when we don't know how to utilize the 7th and 8th dimensional chakra, life force, as you saw it, coming into this hologram becomes fragmented to the point where it cannot enter in and anchor into the root chakra, especially when the first 3 chakras are completely out of balance, especially when there's blockages in the hearts and the upper chakras of intuition. So what we're dealing with is we are being kind of moved forward, gently pushed forward, and in some cases severely pushed forward, in order to begin to understand that the connection between the physical and the intuitive realm has to happen now. It has to happen. There has to be this internal marriage between the physical and the non-physical, the intuition and the physical expression and action, embodiment of that. And we are experiencing that around the entire world. Every human on this planet is questioning that and coming into inquiry about how that, what does that entail? What does it entail to be intuitive? What does it entail to trust your gut? And what does it mean when we don't trust our intuition? How does that lead us into making decisions collectively that are either productive or not productive for the collective? Conversations about the collective are coming up because when you enter into the non-physical realm, you begin to see yourself as not just the physical, but as the non-physical. And in the non-physical realm, we are a network of life force that is very, very interconnected. People are having massive synchronicities, meeting one another in order to carry things out in the world around us. But the most important thing is that if we don't know how to manage the 2 integrations of these areas, we won't be able to access the highers. And this is where we create blockages and illnesses in the body. Now, I want to take your attention to the 9th and the 10th dimensional layer, because the 10th dimensional layer is actually the dimensional layer that begins to communicate with what we know as our, let's say, our solar system. And I just want to remind you and just give you an idea that the constructs that we create as the universe, in my opinion, you know, because I am very skeptical about many, many things, but also because of the things that I have experienced and seen, I try not to speak of things as truths, but as suggestions and possibilities, because we live in a multidimensional reality and nothing is finite. Everything can be consistently changing at all times. And so the way that we look at our solar system is a complex of a solar center, sun, and we have the planets that surround it. But there's something important to the math of the structure of this multiverse and of this galaxy, that the sun functions like a main antenna system that radiates data out into the other planets. When data is input into the sun, we become affected. We absorb and we receive that information from the 10th dimensional chakra. So this is really important. I'm going to stop here because I'm going to keep going. I'm going to stop on this slide because I want to explain to you some other things. So again, the way that these chakras function in the physical body, depending on which chakras are more overactive, unconsciously active, or underactive because of unconsciousness, will dictate how your vortex is spinning around you, how it is moving, what is moving in which direction, is it distorted, is it slow, is it sluggish, and whether or not you have the ability to manifest into the physical plane. You probably are not manifesting into the physical plane if you are in a constant state of activation or imbalance of your root to your solar plexus. This is important. Our emotions are the most important aspect of the experience in the physical, because the emotions are well, you know, there's that saying, energy in motion, but more importantly, we are manifesting, we are co-creating through the vibrational language of emotions. So it's very important to understand anytime the emotions drop or go into a negative space, we are literally counter-creating, not just verbally and expressing, but the entire body is counter-creating in that way. And too much counter-creation results in illness, of course. Now, let's go up to the 21st dimensional plane. This is the structure that we're beginning to open up. And as we begin to expand into the 21 chakra system, why 21? Because if you take a look at this design of our Fibonacci sequence and how we are moving from axis of the 13th into the 21st dimensional spiral, let's say, movement in this infinite rotational design of the multiverse. And it's not exactly evolution per se, but it is an expression that we are now experiencing. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh no, my slides. Okay, so in this 21 system, we are beginning to access now next level of our physical body. And some of you might say, gosh, we can barely have conscious communication. How can we possibly access these higher levels of information? Well, the 21 chakra system is going to be important because we are entering into a range of communication with the interdimensional plane. And there are certain things that we need to understand about that interdimensional communication. We need to understand certain, let's say, laws or structures of reality of the universe that regard how exchange functions. Is the exchange, just like this dualistic expression, is it constructive or is it a destructive exchange? And because so many people are going to start having contact and become aware more than ever of their interdimensionality and their intuition, it's going to be implemented into the new societal model of the future. And we really need to kind of train ourselves to train that intuition, because that is the next level of the communication system that we're going to be utilizing. The not training of that and the opposite of that will go in the direction of artificial intelligence, and in which we're going to be having the invitations to insert implants into the brain that manage processes like that. Okay, so we don't want to go in that direction. I mean, you're welcome to go in that direction. There's nothing wrong with it if you're okay with that. But the problem is that if we are become dependent on something external, again, we become parasitic because we are counter creating. And the idea, in order to become in alignment and expand and fortify the multidimensional body, in order for it to exist in the new ranges of frequency that we're coming into, we need to activate this physical body. We need to learn how to master and function in this new 21 dimensional model that we're entering. It's also going to be affecting the physical body tremendously. What does this mean? That the more chakra systems we work with, it means that during dream time, the times that you leave the physical body, which many ancient civilizations around the world have been training for centuries and centuries, revering death and revering the process of going into the subconscious mind, where we have the option of detaching from the physical body and traveling anywhere in the multiverse. It is a portal. The crown chakra is a portal into different dimensional planes, and we have access through our DNA, through our genetic code, to access different planets, or whatever constructs that we create, but different vibrational existences, frequencies that are encoded already in our DNA. Because we are a cocktail of DNA, which means that we have been hybridized since the beginning of time in this planet, we have access to all of these different frequencies that make up what we are, because again, we're source. But the access into that information is through our DNA and through the activation of this portal system, which is the physical body. So what will happen is that if we're not maintaining the balance of this chakra system, our physical body will deteriorate, and we will have illnesses of some sort, and essentially result in death. Now, there's nothing wrong with death, but the way that we die is very, very important, because again, we live in a frequency universe. The language of the universe is frequency. So if our physical body at the time of death is filled with fear, anxiety, anger, this again creates the opposite in that toroidal field. It's counter-creating and matching, again, vibrational frequencies of repetitive cyclical patterns, which are encoded in our genetic information. So our ability to navigate these higher dimensional planes allows us the ability to access, let's say, higher dimensional technology that can heal the physical body, allows us to access interdimensional fragments of ourselves that have been fragmented through past experiences. So this is important, because how we talk about ascension, we hear a lot about ascension, we hear a lot about waking up, becoming aware. What does that mean? Well, we really look like, we look like these giant, I don't have that here, but we look like these giant networks of little orbs or spheres of information. The designs of this universe seems to be in spheres, as it were, for this dimensional plane, at least how we see it. These spheres of consciousness are fragments of ourselves, and we fragment in different dimensional planes, and we also fragment within those dimensional planes. Again, it's a self-similar pattern. These fragmentations are the fragmentation of what we know as our soul. The soul, which is the access, the portal way into that infinite source, becomes fragmented in these dimensional planes. How do you become one again? By reintegrating those fragments in all dimensional planes, essentially. So a lot of you have been working powerfully over the past couple of years to reintegrate yourselves. And you have experienced major shifts. You have experienced, as a result of that activation of intuition, you've experienced recognitions of past lives, remembering of information, tools, all kinds of things. So we know that this is true, that this model is true for the physical structure. When we reintegrate our fragments, we have access to expanding ourselves as the whole. We become one because our entire body now is not just this hologram, it now becomes all of the fragmented pieces that we are. Another thing that is occurring with this 21 structure of expression is that dimensional expression is that our DNA is going to be changing. We are activating more strands of our DNA, and science have already discovered that we do have this, four-strand DNA and even more strands of DNA that they're experimenting with, trying to understand how this anomalous thing happens in the physical body. And they've been studying it more in the past 3 years than ever before. And I believe that our science will catch up with us in the next couple of years as we begin to understand what DNA is, because DNA is the key to this. As we activate strands of DNA, this is a product of this integration that we're doing with our physical body. This is the physical manifestation of integration, activation of DNA. We are moving, let's say, and I don't prescribe to the idea that we're going from fourth to fifth dimensional plane, but this is something that's commonly talked about. And what I believe is that we're moving from the 13th to the 21 model of existence. We have access to that now more than ever. We've always had, and we always have, infinite chakra systems, and there's infinite numbers of that, because again, we are source, which is all. But we are experiencing, in this earth at least, in this dimensional plane, the shift from this model into a different model of existence. And this is why we are having so many different changes in our physicality and our world around us. The one thing that I saw is that we are made up originally, at least in this dimensional timeline, of 3 primary bloodlines. And these primary bloodlines speak to not only the composition of genetic information that is encoded in our bloodline, but also allow us to have access to the information that these bloodlines present for us. And these different bloodlines, of course, are an expression of intelligence that sustain this matrix multiverse. They have hybridization programs in order to sustain this matrix multiverse, because the more that you fragment a human soul, the more that you have life force entangled in this construct. And it is through our unawareness that we often agree to some of these programs without understanding really what it means. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that the invitation is that the more we become aware, the more we can understand where we are contributing with ourselves. Just like in our everyday lives, we need to become aware of what we're contributing to in the bigger picture, in the interdimensional picture. Now, the different kinds of blood types all have to do with the different colors, with the composition of them. Okay, whether they have more iron, whether they have different substances within their structure. And why this is important is because depending on the structure of the molecules that make up the composition of the blood will dictate the information and data and frequency that it can sustain and becomes a conduit for, because it's a conduit. And this conduit either can process more data or less data through the body. Our blood primarily is red. It has a large amount of iron in it. And it is the sun, for example, also has a tremendous amount of this intercommunication frequency that can communicate with our DNA and with our blood specifically. So when we have solar flares or when we have something big event going on in the sun, we really feel it. And it's science has proven that it does deteriorate the DNA over time if we have long sustained exposure to radiation, of course. But besides that, there is an effect on the physical body that is mental, emotional, physical, and energetic. Energetic is actually one of the largest impacts that it has on our physical body, which is why when we have solar flares, many people feel it, and they also have side effects. Now, one of the things that I was shown is that the sun is the center core of this galaxy, but it functions just like a toroidal field. You have all of these planets spinning around it. It creates this incredible spinning movement, just like a vortex. The center of the sun is that it's like a singularity point where it creates this, let's say, a wormhole into different points in this multiverse. And the sun functions like an antenna that emanates data into all the different planets in our solar system. This data can be input and modified, just the way our human bodies are modified genetically with food, with our environment. The sun also has this ability. And one of the things that I was shown is that there are many ships that enter into the sun. And recently I saw someone publish about this as well, but it's something that we have seen for a very long time. Even in ancient history, there have been images of the sun being depicted and something coming out of the sun or going into the sun. And the sun is made up of a kind of plasma, which is a programmable substance. It's a programmable substance that functions much like DNA. It is, and this information can be altered by inputting programs into it, and it affects all the planets and the living organisms in this galaxy. So this is important because we are experiencing a lot of activity from the sun, more so than in the last 10 years. And for that reason, we need to understand how that affects us, because the sun is actually, because we live in self-similar patterns, it is like, you can say like our physical body, but it responds also. It's an intercommunication between the organisms that live on the planets. What is happening at this time, and the reason why there's so much activity, is because on the Earth, there's also a shift vibrationally and emotionally in the collective. When we experience strong, heavy emotions, we are expressing as one whole world a certain vibrational frequency, and it creates an imbalance in this information, this data that is being shared with the sun and with the galaxy. And it's almost as if the sun reacts and responds to the frequencies that the earth and all the human beings are emanating from it. So our ability to understand that the mastery over the emotional body is not just an immediate, local, it has local importance, but it has importance in the greater picture of things, because again, we are not alone. We are interdependent in many different systems because those systems are a reflection of us. So as these systems are intercommunicating with us, this DNA that is being shifted and activated as we're moving to the 21-dimensional model, our sun is also shifting in that way as well. And so are the other planets, which I believe that there is a lot of activity on those planets. I mean, we have the moon and we have Mars, we have Venus, all the planets in the solar system, I believe, are inhabited and have activity of organisms within them that are interacting. And so in the same way that this sun becomes a portal system and it has some kind of plasma like DNA, that DNA that you could say that consists of this galaxy is allowing us the ability, it is also a cocktail of DNA that allows us to connect to different solar systems. And the different solar systems, primarily the Pleiades, and these our neighbors, our most immediate galaxies, are what make up our genetic code as well, because we are able to intercommunicate with them through our galaxy and also through our DNA. The other side of this is also occurring is that there are many cloning programs as well that create artificial dimensions. And these artificial dimensions, the reason why they're important is because the way that we become fragmented in our physical body, every piece of DNA that is taken from your body and utilized in order to create other organisms, whether they're artificial or whether they're more organic, and what that means, we really haven't reached an understanding to really explain that in depth yet, because our science is very primitive. But these artificial, I guess you can say, these more mechanical, robotic, cloning aspects of ourselves affect us as well, because the soul is a vortex. Again, it's a warm hole. Through the genetic information, through quantum non-locality, we are intercommunicating to all fragments of ourselves. The fragments of yourself, and then within each other, fragments of one another. So the integration process is important. Okay, and the reason why I'm talking about this, because how do we shift from all of these things that are pulling and we're experiencing things on all these dimensional planes, is through the awareness, through meditation, through hypnotherapy, through these practices of your own training that you do to help you train dream time, because it's in dream time that we're experiencing all these things, that all these things are being carried out, because it's everything that is occurring from the 8th to the 13th dimensional plane. We're going to start going into the 21 dimensional plane. And that means that we're coming into another dimension of experiencing not only contact, but how the physical body responds to that contact and to the experiences that we're having. So as above, so below, whatever is occurring in the physical body, it's happening in the earth, and it's happening in the multiverse. The communications of all the systems of the world, including the planets in the solar system, are connected to our chakra systems. So wherever we are having imbalances, we need to collectively, this is where we talk about the society, we need to collectively bring back into balance. And our awareness has to be on a whole different level, where we begin to heal, reprogram, deprogram limiting belief systems, deprogram any kind of traumas which are based on false systems of reality. And through the deprogramming, we begin to broaden our spectrum of which we have access to. Okay, just like light in this three-dimensional plane, we can only see a certain spectrum of visible light. When you enter into these dimensional planes, you can begin to see colors that we don't even know how to explain. And that's because your vibrational frequency is shifting up to those levels in order to experience that. And our physical body also, you can say, in a sense, expands. It expands in such a way that it begins to basically manifest on a level that is more tangible. As you reintegrate these fragments of yourself, you begin to access your past lives. And in those past lives, you're experiencing over and over again archetypal models of experiences, 13 models of experiences, 13 frequencies, 13 planets within this galaxy, 13 dimensional planes that you have access to. All of these are a construct of your physical body. We also have 13 astrological signs, and they do play a role. They play a very powerful role. In some astrology, they say, it's 12, but I believe it's 13 actually. And these design is showing the process, the progression of the human through these cycles of evolution. We are learning how to evolve. We have to experience all of those things in order to understand this three-dimensional plane. And when we start moving into the next phase, we're beginning to understand now. It's like, humans of the fifth kind, for example, interdimensional beings with technology that is organic. We're entering into a different dimensional reality, and more people are going to be having contact because they're clearing up and they are reconnecting with those aspects of ourselves. So just the way we are reintegrating fragments of ourselves through our trauma work, through our ancestors, the grid that these ancestors create on the earth, much like the veins in your body, much like the neural networks, much like the galactic systems of information, are charged with frequency, charged with information. How we can do grid work on the earth is by doing ancestral trauma healing. The more we clear up the ancestral lineage and bloodlines of belief systems, we change our DNA, we change our genetic code, and we release the vibrational stagnation in these networks of information that are embedded in the grid of the earth. Because everywhere that we are born and that we experience heavy trauma, you're not going to think that the earth is not affected by that. Our environment, as a projection of ourselves, is embedded with information, because the earth also has this plasma DNA that we know as the Akashic record. The Akashic record, which we access through these ninth dimensional, 10th dimensional planes, we are beginning to tune into the history of the collective. And this is how we tune into our ancestral work, past lives, all this stuff. Because again, locally on Earth, we, as a mirror to our physical body, wherever we're holding the trauma in our physical body, you can overlay that on the earth, and you will access that same trauma in the part of the earth that is affected by the trauma that you experienced. And it's very interesting, because when I do healing work with my clients, we access the earth grid. And what you'll find is that people begin to see, more so than last year than ever before, their interdimensional aspects. Okay, so they begin to see bloodlines. Let's say, oh, Pleiadian bloodline. So where's your ancestor? Let's say, oh, they're from Italy. Okay, let's go to Italy. What's your bloodline? It's a combination of Germany, Italy, Africa, India. Okay, what else? And you have Syrian, you have Lyran, you have reptilian. In those archetypal frequencies that we know as species, they're just vibrational frequencies, is encoded belief systems, thought forms, and structures of understanding that is encoded in our genetic code, because we are designed from that. And each one of these different blood types that we are made up of, bloodlines that we're made up of, is creating a structure of belief that is participant in creating a matrix. So we begin to release that from the genetic code and from this structure on the earth. So the healing work that we do begins to shift how the physical body now navigates in this physical realm, how it moves around. Are you at cause, meaning are you in the cause and effect? Are you causing things to occur? You're responding and reacting to things, writing into the DNA. You're not writing anything new. All you're doing is repeating cyclical patterns of trauma from your ancestral lineage. That's all you're doing when you are at cause, when you are unconscious. When you're in reading state, it's where you begin to work a little bit with your first three chakras. You begin to clear up your first three chakras, integration, meditation work, healing. And you begin to activate now your higher level chakras, heart, throat, third eye, crown, and you begin to tune in to intuition now. You can access higher dimensional planes. You begin to become conscious in dream time. When you come into your creator self, you are completely neutral in your state of expression. You're not reacting to things, and you're not necessarily super joyful. You're in a state of creation, because you are one with yourself, all your truths that you are and ever have been, and the truths of the external. And this is where you begin to manage and master the external world, and your vortex of your body can now move. It can now become a creative movement as opposed to a counter-creative movement. So this is where health, wealth, vitality, all those wonderful things that the humans, love to have in the physical experience become very attainable easily, because you understand how to master the physical. So the faster you begin to rotate, even in death, this is the most important part. Number one, your dream time, you will become conscious in dream time. You will be able to practice remote viewing. Okay, you're tuning in to the Akashic records of the world. You can travel anywhere in any timeline and begin to access, and the purpose of that is for reintegration of yourself. It's not merely just the experience of traveling to wonderful places. It is the ability to reintegrate fragments of yourself in order to expand your light even broader in these higher dimensional planes. As you expand your light, you are able to harness more life force into the earth, into the genetic code of the planet Earth. And this is where we begin to really become a generator of co-creation. This is where each human can begin to create harmony, can begin to transcend the limitations of belief systems in the physical body. And this is very, very important to begin to teach our children, because these natural architecture of our physical body, it's not going to go away. Like, we've been experiencing this since the beginning of time, and our understanding of how to manifest now has to go to the next level. It's not just about dreaming up things. It's not just about, having these limited belief systems of gaining material things, becoming rich, having these life experiences. Our vision needs to expand into the 21, which is unity. The higher you go, the more you are one with all. So we are moving towards a collective intention. We want to co-create for the collective. All your choices are for yourself, the self-love that you have toward yourself, which is the integration of the divine feminine and masculine, which means the balance, a balanced, neutral creation, that when you reach that integration, that point of singularity, let's say, as you're moving through this vortex, you begin to see for all, and your choices are constructive for the whole. So in this grid system that we are constantly moving in, any choice that we make affects the physical body immediately, affects the greater whole. So we want to become these vortices, which when you link them one after the next, again, they create this beautiful DNA strand of information that is moving, and we are traveling, experiencing. Traveling, you're going to think you're going somewhere. Everything is happening simultaneously. Okay, everything is happening simultaneously. It's not like we're headed in any one direction, but this is how we, through this construct, can understand how we are moving inside out in the physical body and external. But the physical body becomes an axis of which in source becomes channeled into the organism that we call Earth. And why is this important? Because now that you understand the role that you play, that your DNA plays, that all of this, even contact plays in this realm, we are our Earth. Our Earth is us. So we are evolving with this galaxy, with this collective. The more that we channel source into the Earth, we shift the vibrational frequency of Earth. Things begin to regenerate, more healing. We are moving out of this, let's say, imbalanced parasitic perspective, which we name as the masculine, imbalanced masculine. But I think it's both feminine and masculine imbalance. We are coming into a balance, and we call it feminine because we are activating the next access point of ourselves, which is the intuition. We are moving from the lower to the higher dimensional planes of existence in the body and externally in the greater whole of this multiverse. So we need to, next level, anchor the work that we're doing into the Earth. Your body becomes a conduit of life force. And as you spin faster and faster, you begin to bring that life force into the body. Illness simply cannot exist in a physical body that is functioning at this level. It simply cannot exist. It will not exist. I have proven it to myself, exercised and practiced it in myself time and time again. And embodying unconditional love in the body is absolutely the key to health. And I've healed myself from all kinds of things in the past 5-6 years, even affecting from this sun, conditions of all kind. This is a truth that we can believe and practice in our physical body that is productive. It's not a belief that is, destructive. So the communication between the Earth and the sun is something that we are responsible for as well. we think that we are victimized by these natural things that are happening in the world around us, but in fact, we play a huge role in the way that this galaxy experiences things, in the movement of the sun. And the more that we raise our vibrational frequency, the more that we can affect how nature, how we are co-creating and experiencing nature. It's very important to understand that there is nothing outside of you. So I stand here and tell you so many things about the universe. Here's the catch. Everything is inside of your body. Everything is you. You have this, all of these things I just talked about are not outside of you. They are inside of you. So how we affect it is by the mastery of the self. And we can enjoy the reality that we experience looking at all these structures of reality, self-similar patterns, movement of life force. By mastering our physical body, we can affect the things outside of us. So these cycles of life and death, almost done. Just the way we see them in our life. We see them in every patterns of weather. We see them in patterns of regeneration on the earth and nature. And we want to begin to implement that into our future of how we are creating society, how we are creating this understanding of society. And this goes all the way down to the design of the cities that we're building because of how life force moves through the grids of the earth. And again, as a mirror, the best way to learn how to do things productively is by looking at the systems of high technology that we have within our physical body, how networks communicate within our physical body, how things flow through the body. If we organize our cities in a way that are conducive to generate life force, again, these systems on the earth as nodal points of energy will allow production in a way that is sustainable long-term. So we want to create this society. The society that we create externally is the integration and the unity, community that we create internally. The feminine and masculine meeting one another in order to integrate, to become one, activating the higher levels of intuition, higher powers, higher abilities in order to begin to experience our reality at a whole different level. And our consciousness is what consciousness is. You know, when we observe it, it changes. It says, well, we want to continue in this observation, this state of observation to all things inside, outside of us, so that we can begin to live in this constant state of neutrality and manifestation. In a sense, we are manifesting from that place, accessing higher levels of consciousness. We essentially want to move from a state of power, protection, separation into a state of unity. And this is what it means to embody the next level, the next embodiment of our next structure of our physical bodies in the higher dimensional planes. This is what the entire world looks like, is going to become eventually. And the question is whether you want to participate in that, whether you want to be a part of that. So where are you at on this chart? Are you in a state of separation where you want power, you need to be protected, you're in competition, dishonest, lies, disconnected from things? Or are you in a state of manifestation? Are you in a state of clarity, energy, truth, awareness? Are you in a state of creation now, co-creator? Are you in a state of pure knowing, pure consciousness, enlightened awareness? These are the levels that we need to come into, where we become at cause. We cause and we create now. Now we are affecting things around us. Okay, so breaking the cycles, these cycles of repetitive trauma, karma, will allow for a new state of being, new expression. And we definitely want to teach our children this because they are the next generation of our reality. So that's the end of my presentation. I want to thank you so much for spending this afternoon with me and listening to some of this information. I am a clinical hypnotherapist, and I do DNA reprogramming, and the purpose of my work is to help more people expand and come into that state of powerful co-creation with themselves and the universe. And I'm just happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Wow. How amazing is that, Geraldine? You have given us so much to think about. I really appreciate that. And I have a couple questions. I
Yeah.
know that people are really working hard to prepare themselves consciously, physically, etc. But do you have any tips for people? What can they do to better prepare their physical bodies? Is it about eating properly, diet, exercise, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. But if I would choose one thing to talk about, I would say it's our emotions. Okay. Because again, energy in motion, emotions are the key. We literally can become breatharians if we want to, or we can eat pizza every day. The truth is, you won't want to eat pizza when you're in a state of balance. But the thing is that we need to understand the mastery of the mind over matter. This is the thing. We're a hologram. So we create what we experience. If you're in a state of fear and survival, there are certain things that we've been programmed and indoctrinated to utilize in order to survive. And we continue to be in a state of survival. So if we come out of that state of survival through the mastery of our emotions, we become masters of our experience. And therefore, everything else can fall into place. You become healthy, you can manifest into your life what you need. And you can begin to co-create with the world, having a symbiotic relationship with everything around you. That's what we really want to do. And how do you learn to master the emotions? One tiny little tip I'll give you: get to know your emotions. This is baby steps. Get a list of all the emotions that you ever heard of. Sit with yourself and feel every single one all the way through. Observe it. You do just observe what happens to you when you feel the emotion. The ones that trigger and cause effects in your body are the ones that are loaded with jewels of information in which you can follow through to deprogram, reintegrate. And this is where you start doing some of that ancestral, work, and you get into grid work as well, because we are interconnected systems. So just one little tip through meditation, of course.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let's go out to our Zoom family. And Cindy has her hand up. Hey, Cindy.
Hey, Sheila. Well, first of all, immense thanks, Geraldine. That was an awesome presentation. I just want to thank you so much for the in-depth amount of work and information and how deep you went, and the effort in putting all that together for us and showing us, like the connection of, for the dot, we're the whole. And, we're connected to all that is. We're the smallest, we're the largest, and it all connects. Everything is connected.
Yeah.
But you put it together in such a beautiful presentation.
Thank
in
you.
such depth. I can't even begin to thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was
I'm so
beautiful.
happy you liked it. That's amazing.
I beyond loved it. And you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Cindy, thank you so much. Okay, Susie has a question for you, and then we'll go to Paul.
No matter how I sing Get Ready My Soul to get ready to listen to you, I always get overwhelmed at about half point because you have so much information. But my main question, I think, is to get all of these chakras open, do we need somebody like you to help us, or are there classes? I mean, we're learning so much, but we're in so many directions right now, but it feels so important to get these chakras open. How do we do that?
Yeah, great question. And if I can do it, I did it by myself, without instruction of anyone outside of me. So if I can do it, anyone can do it, because it's just a matter, again, I think that the emotions are the key to understanding the chakra system, because the emotions are the language of frequency, which is what is processed through the chakra system. The chakra system is connected to your endocrine system. So any time that you've ever gone into stress or deep traumas, your body is secreting chemicals in the body, creating all kinds of processes that are recorded in not only your DNA, but in your holographic body. So when you sit in meditation and you feel a certain emotion, you will immediately access that data through the emotions first, the sensory body, all 5 senses, even smells, tastes, sounds can trigger these reference points of trauma. I was showing you that grid where we have that grid around the physical body. Literally, they are points that are in your body. When I look at the multidimensional body, when I see you, I'm able to see where you have these little points in your body, where they're connecting to the system in the physical body. If you have any kind of ailments in the body, that's a wonderful place to begin. Just even if it's just a subtle pain, you go to that pain, you sit with that pain, and in that pain, in the discomfort, comes up emotions. Those emotions are packed with information. And at first, it's going to feel very difficult to maybe identify or vocalize what you're sensing, because we are so external that our nervous system is shot. And so through silence, meditation, vipassana, you start with vipassana, which is just the observation in silence. You train yourself to calm the nervous system back down into state of observation. And so when you access this emotion, you will more easily be able to listen, hear, watch, and observe through the senses what's encoded in that tiny little pain that you thought was nothing. A lot of my sessions start off like that. Oh, I have a back pain, Let's go there. What is that? And by the end of the session, they don't have a back pain, because you remove the thought form that is embedded in the physical and in the etheric realm of the physical body. So this is the best way to do it, how to start, and anyone can do that. That's a pretty simple thing that will take you down the journey of learning yourself.
Beautiful. I'm really looking forward to doing the replay. Sheila just put the replay, because I couldn't see all the charts, but I've got a bigger computer in the back and the charts look just fabulous. So
Great.
thank you so much.
Yes,
I
my pleasure.
intend on growing.
Thank you, Susie.
Okay.
All righty. Thanks, Susie. Paul, let's bring you up.
Hello.
Hey, Paul.
Presentation. Thank you so much for sharing. I was very encouraged by what you had to say, and some of the maps you had really inspired me and connected with what I had been learning on my journey. I have a curve in my spine, and I noticed the electric and balance issues that can create. And I had to do a lot of my own research to learn, how do I balance my feet? How do I balance my breathing? How do I balance my spine? How do I not pinch a nerve? And more importantly, how do I listen to my body if I use mind over matter to erase the pain and ignore the pain, no matter how loud it shouts, until a breakdown, versus how do I get a subtle cue from myself to talk to myself? And I found a lot of really great help with my Apple Watch, using simple biofeedback like heart rate and basic stress detection. Now, I didn't know this when I started, but that's the basis of new Web 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, which is like, okay, the QWERTY keyboard was a nice idea. We can do something other than a touch screen to say, I'm feeling like this. I think in the near future, we'll see something more like, if we could have a meditation that's interactive, where I could say, hey, Alexa, I'm having a feeling I don't understand. And it would have wise follow-up questions to help walk you through that meditation for yourself. So it's not like a robot zapping you into feeling better. It's a bit more pleasantly guided. And I really like to sync up with you on some of those possibilities, because I think you have the geometry there. I really resonated with that. And I'd love to make technology easier to use and more natural.
Very interesting. Yeah, let's definitely talk about it and see, how that can be possible. That sounds like something very interesting. I also want to say, and this is interesting that you brought it up, but a lot of let's say long-term illnesses or disabilities or things like that are part of the physical body are not actually in the local data bank of your information, but they're actually going to be in ancestral lineages. So a lot of clients that have these kinds of pains that are, something that has to do with the structure of your body, these are things that great-great-great-great-grandpa had some kind of traumatic issue that manifested through the DNA into your organism. And so the invitation to every soul that is born is to be able to heal and reintegrate those ancestral lineages that are being carried through their expression, their holographic expression, and they can be healed through ancestral work, actually. So just really quickly, but yes, the biofeedback is super interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'd love to follow up with you on
Yeah,
that. I
let's
know in
do
my
that.
own exploration with hypnosis and therapy, I found that my ancestral trauma, a lot of it links back to sailors. I have a great grandfather who wrote the book on navigating waterways. There's lots of politics and international commerce and a lot of that wrapped in there. And it is amazing and detailed and emotional and dramatic and logistical. So there's numbers in there too, but trying to find a way to unpack that in an organized way has a lot of benefits for us collectively. And I love the idea that there is a way to tune into that. There is a way to get wisdom from that. And there's a way to grow with that. So thank you so much for your shares. I love the upward spiral and love to continue being creative and generate amazing things.
Do it. Thank you so much, Paul.
Great. Beautiful. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. And Bridget, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to come to you, but we have, I can't read. Is it Nikki? Let's bring you up. How do you pronounce your name?
Oh, I think you're
mute,
muted.
honey. You're on mute.
The mute button is in the lower left corner of your screen. If you can find that, it looks like a little microphone, click it, and we should be able to hear you again.
Her mute button's off. I think it's something.
Yeah, your mute button is off. Can you
We would
increase
love
your
to hear
volume?
you.
Probably have to rejoin and activate sound, Nikki. I think that might help, maybe.
Yeah, her name is pinned.
Yeah.
There's something different about that. Oh, now it's not. Or yeah, it's still pinned.
One other thing you can check is in the corner of the mute button, there's an arrow, and that can show you which microphone you're selected, and that can help us hear.
Hold on. How about that? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Geraldine, I missed the very beginning of your discussion, so I don't know, but did you speak about your involvement with creating the hybrid children? Did you articulate that already?
I briefly touched it. I didn't really go in as in-depth as I normally go in other presentations. But yeah, did you have a question about that? Something specific that you'd like to know, or something I can share?
I'm fascinated. I wonder if there's another presentation that I can look at so that you don't have to go back through it. But is there something else I can look at to find that out?
Yeah, I do talk a lot about that on my channel. So maybe you can check out my YouTube channel, which is Geraldine Orozco. Yeah, and I can also share on my newsfeed on Facebook or the page or my Instagram. I will share some videos, just a little link there for you. You can check it out.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Beautiful, fantastic. It's very exciting.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you so much about particularly the maintaining connection with the natural, the higher dimension at a natural, the non-tech pathway. Thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Nikki.
And it was so great to have you with us. Hope to see you again. Okay, Bridget, do we have some questions from our Awake and Ascending family?
We do.
Yay.
Okay, so Jim, our very own James Fairley, has a question. He says, let me see, about shifting away from technology. I wonder how much of a shift away will be necessary.
Well, you know, you see, the thing is this, and this is something that we want to kind of mull over. We are the future of technology. Okay, so our generation, our hybridized race, is the result of massive technology billions of years ago. So everything is cyclical. we are going through, it's constant cycles. We've had many cycles on this earth where our civilizations have reached a peak point, and at the peak point where there was a merging with technology, there seems to be some kind of reset of some kind. So this is something that we see in the generations historically, and I think that we're headed in that direction as well now. And we are at the beginning of that. We are at the footstep of that, I would say another probably 20 years before we go into the direction of resetting. But we are headed in the direction in which the organic naturally meets this artificial, because the artificial mimics the inorganic. And again, remember that in this dimensional plane, because we're experiencing duality, artificial intelligence, in a sense, is a representation of that dualistic expression, right? Because one is, it represents this masculine aspect of physical action, and the feminine is the intuitive. We are the intuitive. If we can happily marry these two aspects of ourselves, then we can produce something major for society. The thing is that the people that are in power right now, the 1% that rules, BlackRock organizations, all these companies that are managing all of these systems of our society, are indoctrinating specific agendas to deconstruct our expansion energetically and genetically. We are being genetically modified through the food that we're eating because we are not aware of how to master matter. And so we become guinea pigs, and let's say we can become victims of this system. The idea is that the more we enhance our light and activate ourselves, we master what we experience. And the more of us that do that, we're shifting the balance of the focus of how things are done on this earth. And that's what we want to do right now. We want to collectively create societies and communities that are conducive of life rather than destructive, counter-creative. And that would require a complete shift in politics, education, which is number one right now. We need to educate children so that early on they are aware of all these systems, so that whatever it is that they want to do, they can hit the road running in a way that will be productive for the collective, as opposed to self-serving again. And then food, we're going to be seeing a lot of shifts in food. We're going to be going to more artificial food with this lie that there isn't enough. So we have to grow our own food. We have to farm our own stuff, and use energy to nourish the body, because it's not just about the food you're eating. You are nourishing the food with love, using it as a constant medicine, healing this physical body. So there's so many things that we can do. So when we talk about whether technology is something negative, we just need to learn how to bring things into balance and use technology as an aid to push forward our society, and be mindful of where we are becoming parasitic or codependent. Anything codependent is not good. Any relationship, right, that's codependent. We are interdependent. That's what we want to, essentially, that's our design. So that's my take on it.
I know
Thank you
Jim
very
is saying
much.
thank you. He's here. I love you, Jim. Okay, so Heather Mattoon, otherwise known as Ether, says, thank you for the presentation. It and you are amazing. May I please ask to touch more on how the sun is affected by the emotions and conscious participation of the expansion of humanity? I would love to understand that more, to be able to honor that co-creation process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. The key is to the 10th dimensional chakra. The 10th chakra is the access point or the portal to the network that connects to the galaxy, to the immediate galaxy. Okay, all of our chakras connect to different systems in this multiverse, but the 10th dimensional plane is the one that intercommunicates through this network of energy with the sun. So when we experience information coming from the sun, everything is resonant with one another. So if the earth is in a constant state of chaos, the way we've been over the past couple of years, we are emitting a frequency collectively that is affecting the rest of the galaxy, and it takes things out of balance. Just the way when we have a strong emotion, our bodies come out of balance. So the sun responds to that. there are also other things that have been happening on other different planets that many seers and psychics have been tuning into. Civilizations on other planets that have also been going through shifts because, and this is what helps solidify the concept that we are literally moving from one structure, architectural design of our existence to another, because of these shifts, all the different systems are being affected. They are all being changed. There's a transition point occurring, an evolution, an alchemical process occurring in the physical body as well, from a lower density into a higher density. And in order to experience that, there has to be a kind of fusion that occurs inside the body, you know, temporarily. So we are all expressing that. And again, the more aware we are of the emotions and how we are contributing to our experiences collectively, which is really important right now because of the amount of distraction and disinformation or any just information overload in general, people are not listening to their intuition and to the guidance that is being provided by the collective intelligence that knows the balance of nature. When you are connected to the whole, you are communicating with nature, and nature always knows how to rebalance itself. So we have to bring ourselves in a state of subtle neutrality enough to be open to have that communication with nature, with this multiverse that is a reflection of ourselves again. So I think that this is how we are affected by the sun, and how we can begin to shift these solar flares that potentially we think, oh my God, they're going to come. You see, with these things come into the collective subconscious because we're creating them, we're manifesting them, and they're potential timelines that are very real if we keep going in that direction. But the idea is to change timelines. That's another thing. We can do a whole presentation on that. Changing timelines collectively is incredibly important for society right now. They need to understand how we're co-creating. Because everyone plays a role in that.
So Heather says, thank you for expanding on that. I love that we have an accountability in this, and that others, is that become aware of this too. Thank you,
Yes,
Geraldine.
Totally, love it. Thank you.
We have another question from Bethany Dixon, but before I ask this question, I have to say we have a room chat now in our clubhouse rooms. And I kept checking it during your presentation, and everyone is just talking about how they're lighting up.
Oh,
it
that's
was
so
like
awesome.
the sea of lighting up, like, and it was this conversation that was going on aside, but it was so amazing. They're definitely receiving the codes, keys, and frequencies, and all of the beautiful energies coming through your content.
Yes, let's do it. Rise,
okay,
humans.
So, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I got excited. Okay, so Bethany says, can you ask Geraldine to expand on the blood illnesses, I think she called it. Is it cancers, anemia, etc.?
Yes, all of those above. Any kind of abnormalities in blood and DNA, essentially. But one that has been coming up a lot, and when I say a lot, I'm not just talking about just a couple people. I mean, I work with a lot of people, and it's every single person the past couple of years have been like anemia, this problem with the bloods, different deficiencies, B12 deficiencies. And I was researching these scientific papers to kind of see if there was a connection. And literally, they were talking about how there is an uprise in anemia, in the world. They were checking different countries and comparing. And, they talk about how the electromagnetic field of the body is being affected. This is science saying that because people are spending time in front of the computers, it creates a distortion in their field, and it's not able to reproduce properly. Plus, people are sitting a lot, they're stagnant, they're not moving. And of course, blood is created here in the hips, and that's another distortion. So there's many different parts of it, psychological, physiological, and emotional, of course. But the solar flares play another role in that, because it's almost as if, and I can't go into the science, I will post the article in maybe under Sheila's post that she does. So please follow Sheila and she will, but there's an article talking about how the iron in the body is affected by solar flares. So when there are heavy solar flares, the physical body gets affected, and this causes a depletion in iron for many people, causing anemia. So the link between those two was massive, and it was like an aha moment because you begin to understand the connections between these things. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. That's
Thank you,
amazing.
Bridget.
That's so interesting. Geraldine,
Yeah,
I love that you're researching it.
Yeah, because I do love science. I really do love it, and I'm not a scientist or a biologist, but I try my best to understand because I believe that science is catching up, and there's a merging. We are merging science and spirituality eventually.
I have a question that came up while I was listening to you that I think might be really beneficial. Not sure if I've worded it appropriately, but what are some ways to maintain the balance of the expanded chakra system to support higher dimensional expansion, reintegration of our multidimensional fragments?
Love,
rather.
super important question. Yes. And I didn't go too in depth into that because that is an important thing, because to answer the question quickly, it's to be in a state of neutrality and a state of non-judgment, because what's going to happen and what's happening is that we're having more active activity. We're having interdimensional activity. People are going to be remembering their dreams. Dreams are completely important, because even though what you dream might seem like something insignificant or silly, that's just your mind constructing something for you to kind of understand, but what's actually happening on the other side of that is very important. There's things that are occurring, you're traveling to places, you're interacting with things. So through your intuition, every morning, connect with your dreams, try to address what's happening there, because you're traveling, you're always moving out of the physical body. And the next one is when you're working in the Akashic levels or through astral projection, which is incredibly important to train, again, for the purpose of reintegration. We are beginning to hold more light in the body. Because why? Because when you become aware of your dream time and this travel that you're doing, you're literally activating your DNA, in which the entire energetic body, it crystallizes the information. Okay, it crystallizes the frequency. There's a difference between conceptualizing something and just quickly remembering something and embodying something. So there has to be this process that occurs when you're encountering this information. You have to embody it, you have to integrate it. This is how it becomes crystallized in your DNA, which means that you're expanding DNA or activating DNA, and your energetic body becomes aware in the dimensional plane in which you have traveled to. So this is how you've expanded. This way, you create a foundation for source. As it moves through you, it can hold that amount of light during the day. Non-judgment is important because you're going to be encountering any number of things that will scare you, things that will make you feel uncomfortable, and that's exactly the thing. We are training to befriend. Somebody say something?
There was a hot mic.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we are training to come into a state of neutrality by not judging and applying meaning to things. Applying meaning to things is really important because it's an energetic process. When you apply meaning to something, we're literally entangling ourselves. In a sense, we're creating an energetic core to that thing. Again, this is something that you will have to reintegrate from later. This is how important it is to be aware of where your energy and attention is. Imagine how distracted we are. We have cords all over the place. So when we bring back our energy at the end of the day, after a busy day, you begin to notice how you can sustain more life force in the body, how you can move energy through the body. Practice Qigong, because Qigong will help you move life force through the body in a healthy way. So all these things are important. Did I answer your question? I think I did. I'm not sure.
I think you did. Yes.
Okay.
you covered all the things. We talk about a lot of we talk about neutrality a lot, and being a neutral observer rather, in Awaken Ascending, and talk about non-judgment. So I'm so grateful you brought that up. And I feel like it is really important.
Great question.
I think that also somewhat answered my next question that I felt like would be a good question to ask. But before I ask this one, Sheila, do you have other people waiting to ask questions?
Mm-hmm. We have a couple other people. How about if I go to Lynn and Spiri,
Yes,
and then
please.
I'll revisit you? Beautiful. Thanks, Bridget. Okay, Lynn. You have a question? You have your hand up, Lynn?
Hear me? Hello?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, thank you. Geraldine, it is wonderful to see you after all these years.
Same
do you
here,
remember-
Lynn. I
How are
absolutely
you?
remember you. I'm great. So great to see you.
Wonderful, fantastic. And your artwork still stays in my consciousness. It was just so illuminating and brilliant. So I really want to speak to what you're saying about the memory. I'm now 75. I have always had an exquisite memory. I've had prior work where my memory was important to my work. And the other day I bought something because it appeared captivating, called Baihast. Baihast, and took a few sips, and my memory began to go. It just began to go. And I thought, well, I'm not touching that anymore. But the memory stayed non-present. And as you're talking about parasitic, so I'm wondering, obviously there was something in that Baihast, something so extreme to shake this memory that I've had intact for 75 years. And the parasitic part is that now my memory is not coming back. That's one thing. The other thing I wanted to mention, do you agree that this whole COVID situation is part of the reptilian Draco AI formula, in a sense? And my third question, did Nostradamus write about what we are experiencing now with the COVID?
Oh, very interesting. Thank you so much for these great questions, Lynn.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear about what happened with the memory, but it triggers a memory of something I just recently watched. It was a 60-minute episode on anomalous things that are happening to people over the past 5 years, new illnesses that have been appearing, in which, for example, this lady from Australia, from one day to the next, started speaking in an accent of an Irish person, and something that she ate, causing some kind of distortion in her system, caused this.
Wow.
And what it made me think is a couple things. First of all, it's a very rare disease, of course, but the people that do have it have experienced the exact same thing. They either took a medication or they did something that did that. The beauty of this thing, this show, is that what it helps us understand is that everything is in our DNA. We have available. You see, it's so magical. So this probably another timeline of hers where she was from Ireland become activated. And I think this is an expression of the activation of our 21 architectural system that we're going to be seeing more of. Now, do things in our society, in our environment, affect that? Yes. And just the way it can enhance things, it can also deactivate things.
Right.
So the question is, though, I would like to know what your processes were before that regarding that specific memory, because, or the memory in general, because some people that are going through healing processes, after they have done a lot of internal work,
Yes.
or even after ET contact, sometimes memories kind of dissolve. They don't need to show up anymore because they have been integrated energetically. And so if they leave and you don't need to have them, it's because you don't need to bring them into this time. It means that we're shifting into a more intuitive state of being that's not based on past memories. You know, so I would focus more on being in the present moment and enhancing the intuitive ability. I think this is an invitation for that, because you don't need those memories anymore, perhaps.
And as you may remember, when we spoke, I am clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and claircognizant. And the memory was good because I was always present. And it was as if I was grabbing and I didn't have to focus because it was just automatic. And with this one drink, it removed everything. It removed the good, the bad, and the ugly. And of course, the good I wish to retain. And I wish to retain the mechanism that kept me in the present state so that my memory was always intact. Exactly. But very good what you're saying about letting go memories which aren't required to be there. So that frees up to move into another timeline where I can focus with memories which will be more of assistance for myself and the collective. So going to, and thank you, going to the COVID experience and the whole reptilian Draco AI, do you have a knowingness that the COVID thing is part of their agenda?
No, the way that I saw that this COVID was going to happen in 2017. Okay. In my hypnotherapy, I saw this red energy moving through this sector of the universe. And the entire galaxy moved through the red energy. What's the red energy? It's fear. And how it would affect the organisms passing through this at the time would be the manipulation of use of the energy against the organisms within themselves. So it was exactly what we have experienced over the past couple of years, the manipulation of mind, it hijacking what we believe, the belief systems, the trust in the self, the intuition and connection to the higher mind. All of those things were targeted through this experience and shakeup of the world. And I don't, although it is a parasitic kind of expression, I think that it was necessary, and it's a manifestation of the kind of let's say the phase that we are moving through collectively. I feel that it was necessary. I think that without that, we wouldn't be able to have the conversations that we're having today, where we're like, hey, what are we doing? We need to restructure many things internally and externally in the world. And I think that I don't think it's from the dark or the light. I think it's just a natural expression of our, let's say, experience, collective experience. So that's my take on it. I mean, I'm very familiar with the draconian programs and agendas on every level. I know how they operate. But I wouldn't give them this credit for the shift that happened. I think,
that's good.
To be funny, but
that let's definitely not give them credit where we don't have to. They're taking it anyway for themselves. So thank you. And then the final question on Nostradamus. So many things were written in his quatrains. Do you know whether this was written into one of his quatrains? There's a whole period that we've been in for the past 2 years.
Yeah, so I'm very sorry, but I haven't read Nostradamus, so I don't know what he spoke of or wrote about. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, it was wonderful to connect with you again. And lots of forward movement. I mean, it's just required on the planet now, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's incredible. It's so great to see you. I hope to connect with you, Lynn. Let's definitely connect.
Oh, bless your heart. We can
Yes.
definitely do that. I'm
Good.
launching into something new, so we'll see where that takes me. Back to
Fabulous.
you. Lily.
Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And continuing with your artwork, it's just incredible. It's
Oh,
off planet.
thank you.
It's off planet coming into the planet, which the planet needs.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Of course. So we'll talk later.
Yes. Much love.
Much love. Thank you, Geraldine.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn. And it's great to
Thank
have
you.
you here. Yeah.
Yay! I know
Yes.
it's been a while, Sheila, but thank you. It's always good to be back and to share and to hear your wonderful voice. And I don't know whether your little doggy was on the screen tonight. Was your little doggy with us?
He was here, yes.
Okay, well, give him a pat on the head for me.
Okay, honey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Speary.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be with you all. This is so beautiful, Geraldine. I completely agree about awareness becoming conscious of itself, not only individually, but indivisibly as a collective, because we're all really just one. There's only one of us, one universe, one life, one eternal now, if you will,
Yeah.
in which everything is being united by how sensitively we are capable of being, not only individually but together.
That's right.
Yeah, very lovely. Well, my main question is, I have a 5-year multimedia project that involves feature and documentary films, and also a next step for social media where people are able to enter into a commonly sensed, wholly heartfelt, conscious intelligence together by simply noticing the quality of their noticing together, the actual verb, the activity of noticing when it's noticed. I found from 40 years with thousands of people internationally that it brings us into our commonly sensed intelligence and heartfelt intelligence. And it works very reliably, and it's very simple, and anybody can do it. You don't have to pay for it to be done. And so we're making this available for free around the clock in multiple languages, so people can access it in their language or create groups in their own language. And people like yourself who are extremely sensitive and insightful and intuitive and gifted and dedicated to the greater good of all, would be wonderful to have your consultation or any contributions or thoughts that you might have about the project, if you'd be open to considering it.
Oh, thank you, Sperry. Yeah, I think I've heard about this before. I would love to. Maybe we can talk offline and see. Right now, I'm actually super, super busy, but I would love to see if I can support in some way. So
Yeah.
yes.
I know you've been super, super busy, and of course,
It'd be wonderful.
so many people who like yourself are so super busy that it's very hard to collaborate on anything that we could co-create and offer together on the level of collective consciousness, where it's not about these insights and those words and these pointers, but actually being collectively conscious together as 8 billion people. And so this project is designed to allow us to, hundreds of people at a time in these movies, to be brought, the whole audience be brought with the people on screen into this shared sensitivity in a fully embodied way. So we're actually being conscious of consciousness together, and as well as in the social media offering. So
yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I myself am working in few different projects to try to create conscious community. So I definitely think this is the next step, for us to focus on. Many of us are really wanting to do this kind of community thing. So yeah, it'd be great to see where we can merge efforts at some point. It would be great.
That's super.
Thank you, Sperry.
I'm sure you found that, which I have, when awareness is completely aware of itself, and the whole body, heart, and mind becomes empty or void, and all of the normal three-dimensional phenomena is seen to be like a lucid dream or something, and one can sustain that for a long time, and without even opening one's mouth, without even saying a word, people come into unity consciousness as one consciousness in a fully embodied way. And so it seems that if we can get even a small number of us really anchored in the groundless ground of our being together, that we can actually create a shift into unity consciousness on the planet, and which is already happening, of course, because we're actually making more observations per moment as the expansion of the universe is the expansion of consciousness. And so we're inevitably noticing more about the quality of our noticing individually and collectively. So that seems to be a natural step for people like you and I and many others. All the scientific world have on the pioneer in modeling all of this in physics with one of the top theoretical physicists in the world. And that step into being able to actually cognitively recognize what is indivisible about everything and everyone and all of us in the actual, so our mental mind can see it and understand it, I think is a very important step, especially for the military, industrial, political, medical, pharmaceutical establishment that is so left-brained, the male objectification of everything and everybody. If they can be shown an objective reality that is which we've empirically demonstrated in parapsychological work with the Mind Science Foundation going way back, in multiple laboratories have replicated that, and the science, which is a lot like what David Bohm did with the implicate order. We've been able to show what that implicate order is and how it makes the explicate indivisible and how it does that and everything. So it's a giant step forward in our comprehension. So I would love to share all of that with you if I had a way to share it with you that I knew it would get through to you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I appreciate your letting her know you want to get a hold of her. If you want to put your contact information, that would be great. So thank you so much for your comments.
You're so welcome.
All right, Terrence, you have a question.
Yes. And thank you, Geraldine, for for speaking the platform. It's been a pretty incredible conversation, and if I suppose if the conversation has led me to believe anything, the fact that I'm here, that we're all here right now, is in line with some of the attraction or the law of attraction that what I'm sort of bringing into my life right now. So very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Terrence. That's amazing. Yes.
Of course. So I've got, lots of competing thoughts, and I sort of did my best to consolidate that into notes that I think have a couple of questions in them. So, feel free to answer in any way that you feel comfortable with. My first thought was just around, just questions that I had, or just your thoughts on plant-based medicines, particularly as it relates to, some of the conversation that we had on curing historical traumas, as, an African-American or a Black American, for me, certainly understanding like a lot of the social programming, around, particularly like cannabis, and to a lesser extent, like psilocybin versus, some of the programs that, in my opinion, impacted my family, particularly, we were from LA, and we all, well, at least a lot of us know what was going on in LA during the 80s and 90s, and how that then impacted Black families, particularly, just family dynamics and learning how to forgive your parents for sort of having to go through their own hurricane, that then, in my opinion, has sort of manifested into, fears around like death, claiming birthright, understanding realities or the chains as you described them, But then also as a writer, I believe that that is my why, that's my purpose. When I, go back to what my sort of core strengths were when I was a kid, writing was, just my art. And so, when I want to communicate something or write down what I see or what I would like to see, that has been very helpful. So I'd also be sort of curious to hear your thoughts on language and how language is going to have to change as we get better at tapping into our nonverbal communication skills, as we embrace some of the concepts around the fourth industrial revolution. In particular, I also really appreciated your point on, co-creation and not necessarily leveraging technology all the way. I think that it sounds like you're sort of reminding us the importance of analog creating, which I think is important as well. And I definitely think that then impacts, the last sort of question or touch point that I have is just your thoughts on, organized religion, which, then has a lot of, importance around symbols, like body language and sort of like those repetitious movements or whatever that Habermas talks about. So I know I threw a lot at you, but I would just love to hear sort of, this has been a lot of really cool things. Thank you.
Amazing, Terrence. Thank you so much. I love your questions because they're so profound that it means that you've really been, you're trying to find answers for this collective, in a way. You're doing your work, and I just love that. I honor it so much. So thank you. We could do complete presentations on every single question that you just asked because there's so much to that. Culturally and, how we are dealing with things. I'm writing my book right now. And one of the things that I write about in the book, which is quite controversial, I think, for some, is that I feel that in a way, we never quite finished the Holocaust, all the activities that have happened after World War II, okay? And please, anybody that's in this chat, I would say this with a lot of love and respect when I refer to the Holocaust, that the purpose of the Holocaust wasn't just to focus on a religion, a group of religion, but I believe that it has to do with a kind of DNA that certain people had been genetically modified on this earth to carry from the origin of time. And I think that Hitler played a huge role in commencing an agenda that was started and never really ended. The war may have ended, and those incredible things that they did, horrible things that they did, ended, but it never ended. It actually expanded to a massive scale. And in a massive scale, it was forming agendas of elimination of certain bloodlines, distortion of certain bloodlines through cultural structures, through the way societies were built and programmed, the way people were moved and allocated to specific places, not just energetically on grid points on the planet Earth for a specific reason, but also the resources that were available to these cultural groups for that reason, and also many experiments that were done genetically on these different groups, especially in Africa, for example. That was a huge thing. Why? Because the lineages that are descendants from that bloodline are an incredibly powerful genetic code that is a base origin code for many of the bloodlines around the world. So it goes into a very complex topic, but I think that without a doubt, there is some kind of formulation and design to how our humanity is expressed. Our human race is being somehow genetically modified as a whole, and we are a product of that. Now, let's go to the next topic, which you talked about, ayahuasca or some of these psychedelics or plant medicines, for example. Which was inserted into society at a certain point in our historic line for a reason. What do I think about plant medicine? I have been able to access this information organically without any kind of medicine or drugs of any kind or alcohol of anything, because I'm extremely sensitive due to my contact experience. So I've never experimented with those, but I work with a lot of people that do. And what I see energetically in the body as a result of this plant medicine oftentimes is more destructive for their energetic body than it is conducive and productive. And I will say this carefully because I know a lot of people are quite passionate about the plant medicine, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there are side effects energetically. Plant medicine is like a snapshot into the realm, into your information, a snapshot and an experience through your holographic genetic information. And for that reason, if you don't have education on how to integrate that process that you dove into, people will have distortions, and the spiritual process will be very short-lived. It will be heavy information. Hopefully your body can handle that. If it can't handle it, because your body has to be generating certain frequency for you to be aligned with what you're preparing yourself to touch into. If it's not, I've seen clients that have gotten multiple personalities. They've resulted with schizophrenia as a result of these things, and many other kinds of mental disorders as a result of doing some of these plant medicines, including weed, or herb, for example. The problem that I have, every single one of the plants, remember, everything is frequency. They are their own essence. They have their own consciousness, these plants. So when we are merging with that kind of intelligence, your body has to be prepared for the side effects of that. Plant medicine, for example, like weed, what I notice is that it paralyzes the emotional body. And it has its purpose, but you need to understand how to use that. I see a lot of people that have started using that medicine early on in their teens, and they are emotionally paralyzed at the age in which they began. And if they continue doing that, they have these blocks of memories where they're unable to access the data from that. So it can cause a lot of slowing down in your spiritual work as opposed to aiding you if you don't use it properly. So we can talk a lot about that, but there are different ways to utilize this. Shamans train 10 years at times, 5 to 6 years minimally, in order to utilize these medicines, because the body has to be prepared for that. You have to understand how to move through the body energetically, how to navigate dream time. You need to train yourself so that when you're in that realm, which is a fantastic window into this realm, you know how to navigate that without being pulled in another direction. And I think that plant medicine is being pushed into our society. We have to be very mindful. These agendas have been done in the past. We've seen it done in the past. We're seeing it again, but we're not really realizing where people are having ayahuasca ceremonies of 200 people. That's ridiculous, excuse me, because not only energetically for all the people that are in those groups, there's not energetic hygiene, there's not training on understanding what's happening to you, what you're doing, and people end up with all kinds of things. So I think that we need to learn the ethics of utilizing these tools in a way that can be conducive for our spiritual work. And I think that we need some responsibility around how we're using them. Yes, your next question, Terrence, I'm sorry, I can't remember. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think that, I would just love to hear, just sort of wrapping it up, is just your thoughts on language. I do think that, because, there's a lot of, whatever the plant-based medicine, argument is, what I do appreciate is sort of, the migrating away from pharmaceuticals, and ideally, since we're not like that drugged out, or that, we are having better internal monologues. However, right, now that everyone sort of has a platform and we're putting out a bunch of content, and, I think that it then becomes a conversation on like the responsible use of language. And then I think language is changing in real time. Like one of my younger colleagues a couple of years ago basically insinuated that emojis were the 2022 version of hieroglyphics, which I I couldn't argue. You know?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the topic of language. I touched a little bit on this when I talked about DNA as the currency of the past, present, and future. A couple years ago, I did a presentation where we talk about the origins of language and how it's so much like DNA and how DNA writes protein. And this is how you can reprogram DNA, by utilizing frequency to reprogram what you're writing into that output. So language is incredibly important, and it's becoming multidimensional as well. I think this is the future of language now, where language is, because we are entering a different phase, and I mean, we're using a lot of technology to communicate. Our senses are heightening in some ways, and in other ways, our senses are dumbing down, but we are observing communication on a whole. It is a vibrational thing, it's a visual thing, it's an energetic thing, and it's changing in a way where we're feeling it more, and oftentimes before we even hear or even understand what people are saying, we're tuning into that frequency of the information. So I think with this new 21 structure that we're kind of moving into, language it's necessary for us to train telepathy and beginning to communicate on that level. This is the future of us as humans in communication, and hopefully by enhancing our intuition, we can head in that direction in a better way.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. I'm looking forward to engaging with you, and definitely I'm interested in a reading. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So great to connect with you.
Thank you so much, Terrence. Okay, Geraldine, in order to honor your time, we are Bridget has a couple other questions from our Awaken Ascending family, so we're going to let them close us out. So I'm going to go ahead, and Bridget, do you want to go ahead and ask your questions?
I do, but this time I'm going to take off a headset so I don't stutter. It's hard to hear myself on a second delay. Okay. So Anna Pitts, one of my dear sisters, says, do you have any advice on how to counter the physical exhaustion after astral projecting? At my human body, 36, traveling and dreaming and bringing my baby along, she just had a baby almost 3 months ago, is a bit of a different twist. I'm appreciative, I'm grateful, but it's extra is all. So she's wondering.
Well, there's a couple things going on there. First of all, taking the baby is one thing that I would say to maybe not do when you're traveling. There's a couple reasons for that. One is the law of free will, in which it does apply to this, even mother and child relationships, okay? Because astral travel, astral projection is very much an internal spiritual thing. When you take another person with you, you are asking their vibrational frequency to become your frequency in order to travel into these dimensional planes. That takes a lot. You're holding space for the other person, and because the other person is a baby, they haven't yet developed that yet. Also, I would advise in meditation, first work with the child interdimensionally to communicate with the higher soul. Tune in intuitively, if you can, coming into a state of complete neutrality, no emotion, in order to understand what their journey needs to be, if you're going to take them with you, if you're going to work with them on that level, which you can, but you do need to ask the higher self at least permission to interact on that level. And also that way your traveling is productive. Because anytime your traveling starts to overextend itself in ways where we're not even conscious why or how we're doing it yet, you're going to deplete yourself. Secondly,
I think she's saying it happened during pregnancy. Sorry, I wanted to add that in.
Oh, okay, perfect. So pregnancy is a little bit different. I might even say specifically in your case, a lot of the places that you were traveling were specific to the child that was in the womb. Actually, when it's in the womb. So that's a different story. When the child is born, then you have to work on their soul level and ask for permission. But when the child is within you, sometimes, and I worked with many mothers prenatal, that they will do some of this astral projection, and a lot of the places that they're taken to are past lives where they have shared with the child's soul previously. So they're kind of exploring that and doing some work there. Okay, secondly, we should never be tired after astral projection. If we're tired after astral projection, we're not exercising energetic hygiene. And in order to exercise energetic hygiene, we have to train from the moment we wake up to the moment we're sleeping, our awareness. We need to train to be in the present moment. We need to train to balance our emotions and become aware of how we're utilizing our attention and placing our energy in the experiences that we're having in the waking state. This will translate into the dream time and into this projection. What that means is that we're learning how to own our space. It's completely essential to learn how to own your space. An easy thing, I created an acronym called GPAC: grounding, protecting, aligning, co-creating. Grounding means that you're connecting to the center of the earth, because the earth is an extension of yourself. We need to anchor into the earth, again, like I showed in the presentation, so that we can anchor that whatever we experience, we're bringing it into the core plasma DNA of the earth. Secondly, you're protecting. I call it protection, but a better word is awareness. You create a bubble around your body, and you understand that everything inside that bubble is what you master, what you control, your emotions, your perceptions. Next is aligning the chakra system. Train yourself to open and close, especially your first three chakras. When you're in meditation, you're going to close them so that you can reset any unconscious connections and cords that are connected to your first three chakras. Super important. If you go into the astral plane and you have tons of cords connecting to your chakras, especially the lower ones, your vibrational frequency is at a low state. You will go out and you will be in resonant with those spaces. You might be visiting some high vibration places, but you won't be able to navigate in a way that's fluid and interact with things that are higher vibration. There will be a roof, like a limit to what you can see and experience. So practice cleaning up the energetic body, practice Qigong or some other practice energetically, go out in nature, reset the energetic body. And we want to be in a state of neutrality at all times. So you're going to keep your chakras in a perfect alignment, all balanced within the body. And finally, co-creating is the crown chakra. This is a key to astral projection. We have to activate our crown chakra. I want you to sit in meditation, and you're going to select the color that represents your highest vibrational frequency in a state of complete neutrality. This color represents what your soul needs in order to move forward. You're going to put that color up into your crown, into activating that crown. And what it'll do is that when you leave the body, you will be acting from the higher, and the physical will be able to regenerate while you're traveling. This is very important. You need to run energy through the body and regenerate. We can do this by closing the perineum and putting the tongue to the roof of the mouth in order to create this cycle of life force that moves through the body. And you can do that in meditation. Essentially, you're going to move, and it's going to help you moving more fluidly in the astral projection. So those are some things. And when you're out there, continue to remember that you have a bubble around you. Whatever you're exchanging with, that's fine. Remember to stay neutral and don't judge anything you're experiencing. And when you come back into the body, if you still feel exhausted, run energy again. Clear and cut cords with whatever you attached or brought in with you. The more neutral you are, the less you're going to take on stuff that you don't need. Those are some tips that I can give.
That is amazing, Geraldine. Okay, taking that, clearing my chakra, my throat chakra. Okay, let me see. Ether had another one. Let me just get back up to it. Okay, so Heather, Ether. After subconscious processing that we achieve in our dreams, what would be beneficial intentions to hold for dreams time in regards to being of loving service to the field? Oh,
Excellent question. How you will know is depending on the spiritual work that you're doing in your waking state. when you begin to reintegrate fragments of yourself from your entire life, which I strongly suggest you to do, this is what I did, spending hours and hours in meditation, looking at the repetitive programs that I had by following the emotions to the root memory in my life, opening up those memories, reintegrating fragments. And after I did that over and over and over again, I began to realize these are just patterns and it's all the same. We're either choosing fear or love. So how do you embody love? You realize you don't even know what love is. Learn what love is, embody that, feel it, and nourish the body with that love. Reintegrate your fragments with that love. This will grow your energetic body. As a result of that, when you finish doing your life, you're going to go into past lives. You're going to go into your ancestral lineages, continue that work. As you go through that, you're going to see the patterns again, in not only in your family, but in society. And then in all of your past lives that you've lived, we are also repeating patterns. We're also learning lessons over and over again that we don't learn in other lifetimes. We're doing it here with some of the same characters sometimes. So this process of clearing up and clarifying yourself allows that when you go out into astral projection, you have an incredible opportunity to work on another level with yourself as this conscious organism. And you will be taken to the places in these timelines that require healing and integration. This is the basic 101 journey of a person that is beginning to work in the astral plane. This is important because if you go into the astral plane and you haven't done any healing work and you are clairvoyant or empathic, you will definitely have experiences, and oftentimes they will mirror sometimes lower vibrational experiences. You will have contact with beings that are lower vibrational frequency. You have to encounter them anyway, but you won't know how to interact and heal and hold your space in those experiences if you don't do the work, because it is vibrational frequency speaking, not just the mind. So that has to be programmed into your energetic field by the work. So these are some things that you can do. And again, the work that you do in that astral plane is collective healing, because now you're working in the Akashic records. Now you're tuning into the memory of the Earth DNA. And this is where we can begin to do all kinds of wonderful healing. You can go to Egypt, you can go to all these different timelines and begin to heal from there.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. This has been amazing. So grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Oh, Geraldine, what a treat tonight. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this time and time again because there was so much information, so many great questions. And thank you guys so much for asking them and for hanging in with us tonight. It was a beautiful presentation. And thanks to all of our Awaken Ascending people for all of their questions. It was absolutely phenomenal. But Geraldine, if people want to learn more about you, if they want to set up an appointment with you, could you share your website again with them?
Absolutely. So if anybody wants to get a DNA reprogramming or hypnotherapy, you can reach me at geraldineorozco.com. If you would like to work with my support group, I have an international support group. You can reach me at hybridmother.com. And we have some great workshops there for remote viewing, art, light language, things like this that we train there. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have some amazing a lot of free workshops there that go really in depth to this deprogramming that you can learn on your own. And I put up videos. I try to do it every week. So I'm happy to connect with you. Thank you for being here. It was an honor, and love you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Again, thanks to everyone for being here. We really appreciate your support. And I want to just bring everyone up to say our good nights. Much love to all of you. And until next week, namaste. Thanks so much for being here.
Big hugs.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Much love.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Geraldine.
Good weekend.
Big hugs.
Namaste.
Sheila. Love you all so much.
Love you.
Love to everyone.